Hello, everyone. This is Michael Tabb. We are in the third start. We've started the third week in the March class of 2018. I am teaching character creation and writing for film and animation. Uh, I have over 40 students this month, and one showed up to the go-to training. So I thank you, Ms. Young, for being that one student. It says a lot about you. Um, and first things first, I want to ask you if you have any questions about anything this week or
Yes,
anything in general.
yes, I do. Um, the first question I have is when we are writing and we have a character that shows up for a brief moment, even for it, maybe it's like one line of dialogue, or either just that one major character talking to that particular character. Are we to still do a character introduction for that character?
Okay, there's a lot of rubbing of the microphone on something. I'm getting a lot of.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. It's hard to. You're asking about writing a character introduction in what circumstance?
If the character isn't that significant, so like they may only have one line of dialogue.
Oh no, no. You really worry about, well, with the character introduction. What you do is if they have a line of dialogue and somebody needs to cast them, and it's not just extras casting. You of course capitalize the name or what you're calling them for the purposes of the scene, and then in parentheses you still put an age. You can use parentheses or offset it with commas. I use the commas, to be honest. Um, and then, if it's necessary or helpful, a tiny description. But if it's only like one line or two, you don't need much. Usually, whatever you name the character will give us an indication of what you would have put as a character description if you actually gave this character a name and it was a bigger character. So, like, instead of Dwayne, 35, a chubby police officer, NYPD, in a blue NYPD suit, you would just say chubby NYPD, chubby cop, and then you'd put the age, and then in another parenthesis you'd put NYPD Blues, which tells you he's in NYPD, New York Police Department, blue uniform. And that's
Okay.
pretty much all you need. You don't have to give them a big entrance. You want to give big, memorable entrances to the major characters, which would include the protagonist, the antagonist, the love interest, the mentor, or other key protagonist reflection characters.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad I asked before
Yeah. Good, good,
I
good.
actually did. Yeah,
And
because
then
I was at that
sometimes that
point.
you find a way when you finish writing a script, you'll write these tiny parts or several different parts to fill gaps in your script. And one of the things I do when I'm done rewriting a screenplay, I'll go back and look if there's anywhere I could combine characters to lessen the number of people in the cast so that the money on the film is spent well. So there's no wasting of money or time or trying to cast 12 people when you could actually have the same character from this part of the script return in this part of the script, and you can do that.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So that would be a good
Yeah.
thing to think about after you're finished writing the screenplay.
Okay, that helps a lot. Sorry, I repeat what you said.
No, it's no problem. Just, go through and see if you can combine any of the characters. Especially because in this class, in a feature film, you're looking at writing a 90 to 100 pages of script. As most of you may know, one page of screenplay averages out to 1 minute of screen time. So 90 to 120 pages is 90 to 120 minutes of time. So you combine whatever characters you can, and because we're only doing a proof of concept version of a larger film, because we only have 4 weeks to write a script, um, you may not use all the key characters that you have created, but you should have them planned out for when you want to expand this story idea into a feature script on your own time. This is just kind of getting an idea of what it is, putting out a sample of what it's meant to be, so that then you can garner interest for the film if you choose to make this, and then be able to follow that up with submitting a feature film script version of it to try to set it up somewhere at a studio or with a production company, etc. uh,
Okay.
but you may not use all those characters, and you'll want to keep the short film as small casted as possible. Uh, but you don't obviously want to get rid of any characters you need to be able to tell that small story well. So it's all every decision you make is a double edged sword. It's cut as much as you can, but don't lose what you need. you know, don't
Right.
lose your heart when trimming the fat because some people go to trim and they trim so much that they actually lose the parts of it that that might have made it a little more interesting. When you see something that's really interesting and you like it, one of the things I also ask myself is when I see a scene that's really great, is I ask myself, now should I give that beat or that line to one of my more key characters? And would it be
Okay.
within that other character to say those things? First, you have to make sure if it works in the mouth of the key characters, the bigger character role, and then because you always want the key characters that those are casting candy, and you want to make sure that you give the key roles great lines of dialogue, great character bits, great moments, because you want to get an actor worth his salt to want to play that part. Um, so those are some things I think about.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense.
I hope so. Do you have any other
Yeah.
questions? Don't Do you have anything else you want to know about?
Yeah. Okay, so we're writing a short film. Is it okay to leave a hook? If I hope I'm saying that right, at the end. So basically, at the end of the film, the character does art, does show that they, complete their journey, but something happens at the end that makes you wonder, is that, am I saying it right?
Yeah, yeah, it
Okay.
is. As long as you complete the full 3 act journey and the arc is complete, you know, you can tag on to it that there's more to this to tell or say, and you may decide whether to put that before or after a fade out and some credits, kind of thing. It's tough because you don't want the hardest thing about screenwriting today is that yes, there are people who want to make franchises, but they don't. A lot of people have what's the word I want to say? They have an issue with writers who tag an ending on there that says, "Oh, there's a sequel involved," because
Oh yeah.
there is an element of God. You have such an ego. You can't get one movie made, and you think you're going to get a whole series made out of this, and they think that they. But you know what? You can't decide what's best for your story just by thinking about how others may react. So the truth is that you go back to what the core of your movie is. And is it one of those kinds of movies that in its genre and in its style makes sense to end with that kind of an ending? Or if you are just doing it to say something else. I mean, I think it's good in a proof of concept to show there's more because otherwise they wouldn't have a need to read the feature script. So
Okay.
when I think about it, I think it's okay. It's just, uh, um, I think you just have to be careful with how you do it, that you do it subtly, that it's not like, hey, I'm going to turn this into $1 million franchise because I think I'm brilliant. It needs to be done in a humble, really suited to the story way, really suited to the characters, really suited to the situation.
Okay.
And if all
Okay.
those things align and it makes sense to do it, then yeah, do it.
Cool.
What you're
Okay.
gonna find with me is there are rules or things that you see a lot of, but in the end, in execution, there is always some situation, and don't make this bite me in the tushy when we're done talking, but there's always a situation where rules could be broken.
Yeah, that
Always
makes sense. Yeah.
formal thought, this is how things work. But, in every script, there's a moment where, somebody goes, sometimes like, I don't, because most people write them poorly, there is an industry kind of stigma against writing voiceovers and flashbacks. because most writers do not know how to do those very two technical things well.
Right.
Uh, so, but there are situations in which they are mandatory and needed. And it's not just because in a flashback, it's not just because you need to establish something. That cannot be it. If you need to establish something, then show it at the beginning of the story. And don't have it be a flashback. Just have the first scene can take place 20 years before the main storyline, and you set up the characters and you set up the genre and you do it that way. But to actually have a flashback in the middle of a script, that flashback has to be constantly forwarding the story, and the story cannot move forward into the next beat without that flashback. And that flashback has to be used in the second right after you get back from that flashback in order to progress with the story. If
Okay.
you put it off any further, then you did not use a flashback properly. And with a voiceover, people think voiceover is about giving information. That is the last thing it's about. Voiceover is never used just for giving information. You can give information in it, but what voiceover is about and it's used effectively in certain films, where what it's really about is getting to the personality of the character who is giving the voiceover. You're finding out who this person really is on the inside because they don't show it on the outside. If it's not giving an opposite or different perspective than what is being shown on the visual outer aspects of the storytelling, in the mise en scène, in the visual spectrum of what we're watching on screen, if it's not giving a completely different perspective and not totally unique from what we're seeing, then you should not write a voiceover. Voiceover is 100% to show to show who a character really is, despite what they're saying out loud and what they're doing physically.
Okay.
You know, so that, but I veer away from them. But sometimes it's necessary. It's done well in certain films. Like for example, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is one of my favorites. It's by
Okay.
Shane Black, who wrote Lethal Weapon and A Long Kiss Goodnight and Iron Man 3. And, he's got a wonderful writing style that's very slick and funny and fast moving. And it's just a whip when you read his work. Um, so, yeah, he knows how to do things. That is one skilled writer. But other people, I stay away from them sometimes. So, in other words, everything has to suit the moment.
Right. That makes sense. Okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions?
No, I actually think that was all I had. Because that's the main thing that was stumping me. When I got to this particular point. So I think that's pretty much it on my end.
We just got another student show up. That's wonderful. We just finished talking with one student, Ms. Young, Mr. Calloway. We're at the point where the floor is open to ask questions from any of the students. Did you have anything you wanted to ask?
How you doing, Professor?
Hi.
Um, I think was sorry, it's kind of cool. It's my first little thing here. Ah, there you are. Right. I
I just
think the only
realized that I
thing.
didn't turn on my camera, so now I have. Hi.
And I
Oops.
thought it was me the whole time, so that's why I didn't say anything because I'm on my tablet today.
Oh, it was my fault. I just didn't turn it on.
Uh,
I think the only question for me was it's not really a question. Well, it is. So, like for this week, like with the way I've been kind of preparing my script,
Hmm.
like you said, it's kind of for the 120 page.
You're right.
And maybe it's the wrong thing, but like I didn't want to like I'm trying to think of a way to get that down to 10 pages, and I don't want it to dramatically affect my grade because it almost seems like I don't want to be jumping from time to time. I was kind of lost and wanting some help on that.
The way that I approach writing a short script is the way I condense it is I look if you want to do a short script, a proof of concept, but also keep a beginning, middle, and end 3 act structure, which is possible. The way I do it is I pull out kind of the stages in a sense, or look if there's the reason why I have everybody do and only allow them one sentence to write the turning points when they plan a 3 act structure is because you need to know you can boil it down to one specific action that has to happen.
Okay.
Now, because there are 5 turning points in 10 pages, You basically got to have these actions happen roughly 2 pages apart.
Okay.
Logic stands to reason, so that
Mhm.
things escalate. And just think about hitting those beats, and that's it. You're not going to have time for training. Like, for example, if you had a guy who is a normal guy and he has to learn a special skill in order to face the bad guys, what you'll do is you'll set up who the character is and then what their flaw is. They'll come to an incident, they'll make a decision to act, which is the end of Act 1. And instead of them being trained, you'll just pretend that they have been through training. And then in the movie, you would have them go through training or something
Okay.
and do that. But it's like you kind of take the stages. There are turning points and stages, or as I like to call them, there's establishings at the either end. There are in between. I call them the three E's: establishing, evolutions, and escalations. You keep all the escalations and make sure the escalations are basically you're hitting those escalations hard. You're pulling back on the evolutions and letting evolutions happen during the action sequences or the major turning points that you've described. You can hit 5 beats at an average of one per every 2 pages, and that's all you got to do. Does that make sense? Because this is going to lead to that, is going to lead to that. Now, in a feature script, you're going to put in a bunch of other different characters. You're going to have much more time to explore your premise, to explore what it is you're trying to say, and put them through many more rings and many more hoops to jump through and many more situations. But in a 10-page thing, like you'll notice with the outline I gave everybody that I did for Billy the Bully, you could easily see that as a 10-page film as much as it is a complete 3-act structure. The
Okay.
kid gets bullied. The kid unifies with other kids that are being bullied. They they try. Our kid gets chased and almost winds up getting beat up, but then and then he winds up getting all those other bullied kids to stand together against this guy and trap and making an ambush for the bully in the bathroom where they usually get bullied. And then the denouement is the bully is the one who winds up helping them stop other bullies, and the bully is the one with the character arc.
Hmm.
Because we're following this guy, this bully who comes from a very abusive home life, and there's a reason why he needs lunch money and all this stuff. But he finds out that what he needs more is friends. But if you go through those major beats, the truth is that you don't need all that stuff people rifle in the stages, though it is what really gives you a complete, full, and resounding story, and it really allows you to explore it. Um, Ms. Young, it's okay. You can go. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming. I will try to record. I am recording this, and I'll try to post it so that you can review it later. For anything after this, I will also talk about the assignments at the end. Um, does that make sense? How you can kind of time it to work so that it's just about a series of beats that show an escalation of what the story is really about. Basically, you're just showing, hey, this is what my movie's about. It's about a bully who winds up becoming a protector instead of kids that are bullied. You know?
Yeah, no, I get it. It was just like because like I'm so obsessed with, like I said, I don't want to sound dumb, but like so obsessed with like this script, and after like as long as we've been in school so far, it's been molding and changing. And I've talked to my wife, because I was talking about I'm really big into to dystopian stuff. I love like the whole end of the world, and I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. But I start connecting with this because like a lot of people started to like it, my professors, and I was like, well, let me focus on this, and I try to pick off points that people can relate to. Like I want something for that my audience can relate to,
Yeah.
and like I don't like it when, with me personally, I don't like it when like it's a mother or father. Like a lot of us, adults have kids,
Yes.
and a kind of like a tender part is that is it's kind of when the kids disappear. So like I was just trying to mold it, and then like by the time like my first assignment I didn't get a good grade on it, but I was so obsessed and I was so excited. Like I wanted to jot all those things down. It was just like I didn't want to lose, I guess, that creative imagination, you know what I'm saying, like, and miss it in a 10-page script. And like like obviously I want to hit all the points, but like I don't have an excuse, Professor. I'm like excited for all this stuff to mold, and I didn't want like a bad grade. You know what I mean? Like because I just want to like mold my skills as best as possible.
Look, the I tend to be less judgmental about story as I am about the technical aspects of writing because I find it hard to criticize people for their creativity, and I have a hard time with that. I'm not a big fan of that. So, it's going to be about basic structure. It's going to be about beginning, middle, and end. It's going to be about, making sure you format everything correctly, that it's not full of English errors, that we can follow whatever story it is you're telling. You know, there you have you can peek ahead, and there's a 35-page attachment I talk about at the beginning of the class that's called the
Mhm.
cheat sheet for editing tricks. And it's 35 pages, and it's everything I've learned in my 15 years as a screenwriter.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I like
if
this
you,
screen.
if you, after you write the 10-page script, you look at that list and you go through it one thing at a time on the list and check and make sure it's applied to your script. I guarantee you by the end of next week, you'll have a script that is not going to get a bad grade. You know, because you'll know how to edit it. You already know the structure.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that like I said, that was really my concern is because it's
It's
kind of
hard.
start like
We got
developing.
to plan a feature because that's how we can make money in this business. But we got to write something that we can do in 4 weeks, and we have to, as new filmmakers and new film writers, it's a good idea to create a short film, kind of a sample reel of what it is we're trying to create, and put ourselves in a situation to make it or have other people make it, so we have a calling card for our material that people can watch because people who got into the movie business got into the movie business because they like to watch things. They didn't get into the business because they like to read. If they did, they'd be in the publishing business.
Yeah.
So you create something that can be created into something that they can watch, and you're more likely to get people interested in checking it out than you would be if you just handed them a script.
Mhm.
But people will still read scripts if the ideas are mind-blowingly good.
Hmm. I think like you've heard you've probably read what's it called The Great what's it called? It's a book that I read in junior high. I forgot what it's called. It was like The Great something. It's where like a tourist, sorry, it's like where a tourist goes on an island, and this hunter, he was like a humongous game hunter. Like he's hunted all types of game, and he takes tourists. I think you know what book I'm talking about now.
I do, and I can't remember the name either. Oh, that bugs me. No, I
It's
know
not
what
the
you're talking about. Okay, yes.
but like we were at dinner one day, and that's when like it kind of hit me is like because I guess like I hate it when in movies yet again like I know it goes through so many stages, but I hate it when movies like where there's like a long period of like downtime, if that makes sense, where it's a lot where there's a lot of dialogue, or there's kind of no action. Like to me, that's
Nothing's
boring to watch.
happening. Yeah,
And
where
like
escalations and emotional changes aren't happening. If you don't need that moment to forward the plot or the character, then you have to cut it from the script. You should cut it from the script. Nothing should be superfluous in the script. There's a lot of bad writing out there, and I'm hopefully teaching you guys not to be one of them. Yeah, I
like
agree. There's a lot of dead space in a lot of movies that could be really good. And people like to say, well, we need the flavor. It's like get the flavor is what you get while things are happening. That's the flavor. You know, people don't watch movies to be bored. Even in a character driven movie, and it is talking heads, if the characters are emotionally advancing in every scene and the relationships are evolving and things have this chemistry or there's a spark going on, it's good. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be overtly visual, though it should have some visual elements to it. Otherwise, why didn't you write it as a play where they could sit on a single stage and do it? Things like the Breakfast Club. 90% of it all takes place in a high school library, because they're all in Saturday detention. That's all it is. The whole movie is a Saturday detention. It's a
Yeah.
great movie. And these five characters, it's about their relationship, and it's about something meaningful about what it means to be growing up and the disconnection that happens and what they're facing as they get older, and the ways in which youth judge each other and relate to each other, and maybe how we can overcome some of that if we open our minds and our hearts to each other. It's such a great little film, and there are a lot of movies like that. The Big Chill is like that. One of my favorite movies. Everybody goes to visit the. I was just talking about it with Ms. Young, that all the characters are went to high school or college together. But they all went to college together, and when one of their friends from college has committed suicide, they all go back to one of their friend graduates' house to stay for the weekend, and for the funeral. And it's all about that one weekend, that one funeral, and the relationships between those characters. And 90% of that movie also takes place in that one house. Sometimes they jog, sometimes there's a run up to a little cabin, but it's all the funeral and the house and that's it. The funeral is the first 5 minutes of the movie, and that's it. The rest of it is mostly the house and the relationships and their emotional evolutions. That can work, but the conversations aren't boring. The conversations aren't giving you a flavor. They're really imparting wisdom about character and arc and who these people are. And every moment is about really exploring who they are, how they think, and how that affects their relationships with each other, and makes us wonder, where is this going? Is this girl going to actually wind up with this guy? Is this girl going to get what she wants, which is one of the girls comes back there to get one of her old friends to impregnate her, and she's not really sure which one she's going to try for or what she's going to do. Anyway, so things need to constantly be happening. If any line in your script, if it's not either revealing unique elements of the character, and they have to be unique, or it is
Mhm.
not forwarding the plot, i.e., the outer journeys of the characters, then you have to cut it. You should cut it. You don't have to do anything. You cannot sell your script. You can write a bad movie. But yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to watch those kinds of things. Did you have any other questions, Mr. Calloway?
Um, no, Professor, not that I can think of. It's just a lot of script reviewing. I think maybe one more question was like yeah, what movie was that with Gerard Butler? It's like the Law Abiding Citizen.
Right.
And I'll have to look at it, but like I know as in the movie it fast forwards, him a few years because he's plotting and everything. So I was wondering in that script book, like the Bible for script writing, I was wondering if that's in there on like yeah, I was wondering like if it's in there on like how to kind of fast forward time, or do you have to sort of like input that as in like what he's doing throughout that time, and it's kind of hinted towards directors and
Well, you
producers that.
can use montages. I didn't see that specific movie. You can use montages. You can simply put a super on the screen, a superimposition of a couple words saying 5 years later or whatever. You can do
Okay.
things like that. But the key is you don't want to lose momentum of the story. I don't know if that law-abiding citizen actually did well at the box office, but one of the ways that people come back unsatisfied from a movie is if they feel partway through the movie it just kind of stopped and had to reboot itself and restart, and it did not keep building well. But if you keep during the passage of time, there's a montage, like there's this beautiful single shot montage that had to be done with special effects. I don't know if it was practical or not, but I would think there was a little bit of special effects involved in Notting Hill. And towards the end, when Julia Roberts leaves because she's a successful movie star and he's just a small travel book shop owner, and they have this chance encounter and they fall in love, and then it becomes a big deal on the news from the paparazzi, and she winds up having to leave him because she can't trust and all that stuff. And they passage to a year later, and what they do is they simply show him walking down the street where the market is, where they have these outdoor markets, and literally he keeps passing in front of things or by things. And as he walks through, the seasons are changing. So for spring, all of a sudden there's a bunch of flowers, and then all of a sudden he walks past this other booth, and all of a sudden it's snowing out, and he's in a coat and scarves and things like that, and he walks through this other thing, and you can tell it's summer. And so they show the seasons in this little walk that is showing time passing, but it's showing you how he's alone also walking through a crowded space. So it's about this emotional journey that he's taking and having to live without her and being alone. And so it shows it in a very creative way how to pass the time.
That's awesome. I didn't think about that.
It's
But
it's a really good one. There are some romantic comedies, or they're basically movies in general, that you watch the first time and you don't love it. And then you watch it the second time now that you've accepted what it is and that it's not exactly like all the other movies that are in the genre. And all of a sudden you start to accept it. Once you know what it is, you go back and watch it again. You start to realize, you know what, that is a good movie. That is actually a good movie. And the reason why at first you think you don't like it is because it doesn't work by the same timing and templates of other movies in that genre you're used to.
mm-hmm.
And because you're thinking, oh, this is a little bit slow, this is a little bit this, but then when you go back and watch it, you realize the moments are good, the arcs are happening. Yes, that character's a little more absurd than you expect to find in this kind of a movie, so it kind of breaks genre a little bit, but in the end, it winds up being enjoyable once you've accepted the film for its flaws or it's things that it decided to do differently than we're accustomed to. It's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it, Professor. That's really all I had. I was trying to think of different ways to start everything. Like, I have exactly what I want it to look like in my mind. I just need to kind of figure out, like you said, whether it's a montage or the super. I forgot what you just said. Like, I saw it before, but
a superimposition.
yeah,
It's the words SUPER in all caps and
yeah.
on its own line, and then a colon, and then a space, and then in parentheses what it is you want to appear on the screen.
Okay. But yeah, that was it, Professor.
Look up super in the back of the Screenwriter's Bible in the glossary, and it will show you where to do it. It explains both montages and supers. You can look that up in the glossary and go back and look in the Screenwriter's Bible, your textbook.
Okay, I appreciate it, Professor, so much.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Before I finish this up, you can stay or you can go. I am going to leave a message for everybody about the homework assignments this week. In character creation and development, what we're doing is you are turning in your full analysis of all the major characters. Be sure you use the wording that has been provided for you for each character. And then in the parentheses, I explain to everyone what it is you need to individually put into those blanks. In those blanks, you fill them with what I tell you to fill it with. Like for the mentor, you're going to fill that blank in with three things that mentor will actually physically teach the protagonist to do. Now, in the script, you don't have to use all three things, but these three things that you have ideas for having the mentor do, they need to be things that would be teaching physically the protagonist how to do what it is they're trying to do in the outer journey specifically. It's not about the inner journey at all, because then you have the love interest one who is inspiring the protagonist's inner journey by doing three specific visual things that get them to change on the inside. That's what the love interest does, etc. So make sure you have your premise perfected. You've taken all your notes and feedback from all the previous pieces of homework. I will try to have everybody's homework from this last week, graded to you and home to you by Friday, which is when you'll receive also your feedback from the other students on what you posted on Wednesday. So you have all your feedback at once on Friday and be able to work on it to turn in a final version of everything for Sunday. Now, in the screenwriting class, in the writing for film and animation class, the big thing is we are writing a scene. We're not writing it. Yeah, we're writing the full version of the script, the first full version of our proof of concept under 10-page short film with a beginning, middle, and an end. Now, if it's not quite down to 10 pages at the end of week 3, that's fine. I'm not grading you on it this week. but it will need to be by the end of next week. But next week, you're going to have all this huge class on editing, which will show you how to bring the page count down. So that will be okay. But this week, you're actually writing the script. So instead of having to turn anything in tonight on Wednesday, I gave you all of Monday through Friday to write the 10 pages. And everybody posts everything for that script on Friday night with all the information that you've done for background, including your everything you turned in last week, which is all your character breakdowns, your premise, your 3-act structure and how it all works. You put that as a separate attachment also, so that if people have a question about your script and don't understand what you're doing in your script, they may be able to look at that on Friday night and see where it is you may have went wrong in translating what you planned from what you delivered in the actual script. They should line up, but if they don't, they'll be able to see what mistakes possibly were made and what is not being communicated from your original outline into the actual script that you wanted to say that may be needed in order to understand the script. And then on Sunday, everybody the students in that class will provide feedback on that script, full and complete feedback on Sunday. You only have to, I believe, do one script, but there are a lot of rules for the kind of feedback you need to give. You need to give at least 3 notes for every page of screenplay that is given. You must quote the rules that they broke. You must provide a solution and how to fix it as an example of how to fix it, and you need to identify where the problems are, which you would do first. You have to do all 3 of those things. They should not all just be spelling and grammar. This is a screenwriting class. I want you to be learning all the screenwriting notes I'm teaching you and all the format rules and all that. So I want to see a lot of those. The more notes you give, the more good notes you give, well structured, the higher your grade will be. If you give any less than 3 notes per page, according to the grading rubric, the assignment is incomplete, and according to the assignment, and the grading at its highest can be a 72, because it won't be a C. You wouldn't have met the average minimum. So make sure that you give great notes. All your notes are great. And if you have suggestions for them, wonderful. That's part of giving an example. That's part of the 3-prong answer. And then lastly, at the very bottom of the script, you post it in the script. You can either put it in with the script notes, which the instructions show you how to use, or you could just put it at the very bottom of the script. You do need to answer all the italicized questions about that student's script. So there's a list of italicized questions in the assignment, and you're going to cut and paste those and answer those questions for that student regarding that script at the end of the script. Those are the 2 halves of it. So you're doing the script notes and you're answering the italicized questions, and you're going to do all of that over the weekend and get it turned in by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And those are the 2 assignments for this week. If anybody has questions, you obviously know where to reach me. I am at mtabb, T-A-B-B, at fullsail.com. It's been a pleasure, and thank you so much for paying attention, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, Mr. Calloway, for coming.
Appreciate it, sir.
All right. You have any other questions? Last chance?
No, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay. You have a great rest of your week.
You too.